Well, then you know what I'm talking about is true then. See, you have no cover. You can't hide then if you read the book.
What? Okay, so what
if
you're
you
saying,
read the book, you know exactly what I'm saying.
So hold on. So
hold on, guys, hold on. The stream's buffering. Hold on 1 second.
And you know what? My apologies.
Pastor, hold on. Pastor, hold on. We're not going out yet.
Because I thought
going out.
that I was talking to a well-informed group.
Pastor.
You have to learn how to zip it.
We're not streaming right now. We're having an issue. We're having an issue with the stream. Just hold on 1 second. Yeah, we're having an issue with the stream. Hold on 1 second. We got to fix it first. Outside chat, if you're listening or seeing this, let me know if we're back and it's not buffering anymore.
It looks like it's fine on my end.
Okay, everything's good.
Yeah, it looks like it's good on my end.
Okay, all right. Now you can go back to screaming, Pastor.
Okay, so we share a common ancestor with amoebas. Amoebozoa is a clade that we share a common ancestor with. We did not descend from amoebas, right? We share a common ancestor with chimpanzees. All modern organisms we share a common ancestor with. We are not descended from any other modern species, right? Right?
I'm listening, yes.
Okay. So, in Origin of Species and Descent of Man, Darwin details natural selection as well as in other works. And natural selection is the concept that the environment acts on population of organisms, and the ones that are fit enough to survive. They pass on their traits, and these change gradually over time and result in different species, right? That was because Darwin didn't have a concept of genes, and he didn't have a real big fossil record to work with, so this was the basic picture of it, right? So that's what those books are about. There's what I think you're thinking of is phylogenetic trees.
That's correct. That's correct. Analogy. I'm glad someone knows.
That's just what we call them, all right?
We all know what phylogeny is, dude. Trust me. We're not incompetent. We do understand these. We've all had biology, okay? So we do know what phylogenetics is.
All right, go on, continue. Let them finish. Let me continue.
I don't think you have a firm grasp. That's just what Jackson's trying to explain to you.
Right. So today, because we've moved on in the 150 plus years since Origin of Species, we now have a much bigger picture of what's going on at the genetic level and at the environmental level, right? So if I were to ask you, for instance, could you describe the process of evolution to me? If I could just ask you the step-by-step process that happens within evolution that leads to a new species, could you describe that for me in plain English, right? Nothing too technical, just plain English. If I could ask you to do that, could you? Could you explain evolution to me?
You know what you're doing? You know what you're doing? You're leading to a false conclusion.
I'm testing your knowledge of the subject that you claim to understand.
No, let me say this.
I want to know if you actually know it.
I don't think he does.
Let me say this right here. You're leading to a false conclusion. And why I say that is this. And I mentioned this in the last time I was on the program. There was a living fossil, a shark, 70 million years old, they say, that had not changed one iota. Well, guess what? They also found in Burma centipedes, living fossils, centipedes.
So
100 million years old, those encased in amber.
On this one.
They say had not changed one iota. You got one on land, one in the sea. Neither one had changed. And so for me to give you a false narrative of how something evolved, that's ludicrous.
All right.
When you got living fossils,
so you got to wait.
Hilarious.
This is right up Kyle's alley because Kyle actually was recently reading about frill sharks. So let Kyle address this, and then we'll talk about the difference between genotype and phenotype that I don't think you're understanding selective pressure. So, Kyle, you know what frill sharks are.
I'm going to let Jackson take this because this is like his what the pastor's getting ready to describe is right up Jackson's alley, and it would be remiss for me to try to just about me reading articles about the frill shark. So I'm not even going to.
Oh, the frill shark. That's the frill shark. One.
That's what he's referring to.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jackson. You do it a lot better than I could.
That validates evolution.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So let's talk about living fossils. That's a fun subject, and I actually did a video on it. So I had to read a lot of technical literature on it. And by the way, I'm curious to know, yes or no, Pastor, have you read any at all technical literature on any living fossil? Quote, living fossil.
Yes.
Have you read any? Okay, on what specifically? Because I'm curious to know.
I read. Now, I don't know what you consider technical. I'm not sure that what I read you consider technical, but I did my research on it, and the things I read may not be considered technical to you.
So, do you know?
I did my research on it, and I realized that there are some things that if you say it's 70 million years old and has not changed one iota, then what does that say about evolution?
That says you didn't read
70 million years now. I'm not talking about 1 year.
Okay. It did change.
So, do you know?
You're trying to explain this to us. Let me explain why it did change.
Okay. So, generally, you have specialists and you have generalists. This refers to their lifestyle, right? If they're generalists, they eat a lot of things. They're specialists. They're very niche. They focus on one thing. Like, panda bears are very niche. They're specialists. They eat just bamboo, right? Generalists eat a lot of things. They have a wide diet, right? And if they're not very specialized into any one particular field of their environment, then they are more likely to survive should some environmental catastrophe occur than things that do not. The coelacanth is a well-known example of this, because when the coelacanth is a living fossil, because coelacanths have been around since the Devonian, so like 400 million years or so. But the thing is, if you actually look at the fossil record of coelacanths, they've actually changed quite a lot. Ancient coelacanths have a lot of differences from the modern coelacanths. You have like Mawsonia in the Cretaceous. You have Rebelatrix, which is from the Paleozoic. But the modern species, like Latimeria, or the modern species of Latimeria, only speciated from each other about 3 million years ago. So that's hardly a living fossil. 3 million years. Our modern crocodile genus, Crocodylus, has been around for like 8 million years. So when you look at these things, a lot of times they do have different body shapes. It might be larger or smaller. And we can look at that in the fossil record, but we can't look at all at their genes. We have no idea what genes were in play 400 million years ago that are not in play anymore, and vice versa. We have no idea. So when they say 1 iota, I know you weren't looking at a technical source. You were looking at a popular source, maybe a creationist source, but you were not looking at a technical source, because a researcher or scientist would not make that leap, because we have no data to go on.
Now, what I would say, part of what you were saying, please, when speaking, distinguish between macroevolution and microevolution, because oftentimes you get the two confused in what you're saying. When you see slight changes, you try to say that's macroevolution. That's not macroevolution. That's microevolution. And you're trying to confuse the two when there is no confusion. Now, I believe
he completely disregarded everything I said. He did not answer anything I said. My point. He's running off on a completely separate tangent.
Real quick, because you literally did not hear a damn word that Jackson said. You went on a complete tangent. Nothing he said had to do anything to do with macroevolution or microevolution. And by the way, you don't understand the difference. Pat, he does. I assure you, Jackson does. I know the differences. I don't think that you do. And so you're talking about something completely different that was completely irrelevant to what he was just talking about. Macroevolution, by the way, can happen in a single generation. We've witnessed it with polyploidy and whole genome duplication in some forms of wheatgrass and plants. We know macroevolution can occur, and we know it can occur very quickly. It can literally happen in a single generation. But the problem is you don't know the terminology enough to understand why that is a fact. And so you just think that there's no such thing as macroevolution. We know there's macroevolution. Anagenesis can form a macroevolution. Cladogenesis, macroevolution. These are all different types of speciations that occur either linearly or branching effects in some kind of hierarchy, which we observe. Whenever you have a species that speciates, macroevolution has clearly taken place, because now you have to deal with evolutionary processes within more than one species. Jackson, did anything that I just say not be found in the literature?
Nope, you are completely correct. In fact, I have
understand this, and yet we are compliant with what the literature actually says. That you've said you claim to have the literature, but I don't think that you have if you didn't know that to be the case.
No, what I'm saying this right here. Can I speak now? Is it okay if I speak? What I'm saying, but you have been so in. Can I speak?
Sure, go ahead.
I'll let you finish speaking. I'll let you finish, then I'll speak. Go, don't finish speaking.
No, I said sure. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. What I'm saying is this right here. You have been so indoctrinated to believe a lie. And you know when it's a lie when you don't have a model to compare it to. When you say 60 million years, 100 million years, where is the model for 100 million years? Where is the model for 60? What can you look to and say this is 60 million years old? What can you look to and say this is 100 million years old? You know why? They found a penguin. They said there was like that penguin like maybe 20,000 years old. A penguin.
Are you aware of the words
based on using that evolution?
I just want to be
clear.
Are you aware of what you're saying?
Pastor, when you say a penguin, because I've heard claims like this, and I think I know what you're talking about. A lot of times you have creationists who take things like carbon dating and misapply them or other forms of dating and then say, oh, look, we used it wrong and it didn't work. Right. Ha, ha, ha. For instance, they dated, was it a snail shell, I think? And because snail shells recycle old ancient carbon from the ocean, it gave this like super ancient date. It's like, no, we know why that happened. We can factor that into our equation. And because you said that, I'm certain, again, that you don't read the technical literature on radiometric dating or carbon dating.
Let me point this out, Jackson. You notice that he didn't understand one topic, so he moved to another topic. He didn't understand that topic, and so he moved to another topic. He didn't understand that topic, and now we're back somehow at carbon dating, which I want the audience to recognize. This is when somebody doesn't understand the topic, they just move on to something else, because then it forces us to kind of go, oh, wait, well, this whole penguin thing, that was because you cannot radiometrically date aquatic animals because they're primarily consisting of seashell, of mollusks, and those mollusks and those crustaceans, they have this high concentration of carbon because it's not coming from atmospheric sources. This is called the reservoir effect. It's well known in carbon dating, and these are in radiometric journals saying, don't use this for this because we know it doesn't work. This is where it came from. These claims came from creationists.
Can I respond?
That's just finished.
I'm not sure.
These claims, and I've addressed these with Ken Hovind. Ken Hovind has even admitted many of his radiometric claims were wrong. He said he will not use 2 of them. I didn't have the chance to go through more of them with him, but he knows these are wrong. These were not being able to source back in the 80s when they first started coming around. Now you can actually find the actual citations for these things. These are long since debunked things, Pastor. But I really want the audience to have a takeaway from this. Young Earth creationists will never stick on one topic when they don't know something. They always try to move to something else. You have literally gone from racism to not understanding the phylogenetic tree to macroevolution and now to carbon dating. And you haven't answered a single question yet. And this is what I really want people to notice here.
No. Let me jump in now. You've talked. Let me talk. I have answered your question. You don't like my answers. It does not fit your narrative. It does not fit what evolution says. So you don't like the answers that I've given to you.
So
that's what it is. That's called, let me finish. I'll let you talk. Let me finish. That's called indoctrination. When someone presents an opposing view that you don't agree with, even though it's factual, for instance, with carbon dating, where is there in carbon about cross-contamination? You mean to tell me you think there is something out there that has not been cross-contaminated for millions of years, as you say, it has not been cross-contaminated? So how can you rely upon, we're going to, and if you talk radiometric dating, then for the rock, where was the start? You have to have a starting point. So with both of them, both carbon dating and radiometric dating, what you're doing, you in and of itself, they're not reliable. And these are the things you say, something is 60 million years old, 100 million years old. These are things that you use. And what you're doing, because you've been so indoctrinated to believe one way, you can't hear an opposing thought, even though it's true.
Do you consider yourself indoctrinated, Pastor? Do you consider yourself indoctrinated?
You're very much so indoctrinated.
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Why do you consider yourself indoctrinated?
Okay, just making sure.
Pastor, why do you consider yourself indoctrinated?
Now, and answer that question. Hopefully, you answer the question for yourself, too. We all are indoctrinated. We all have things we hold dearly to without questioning. And that's what you are with evolution.
Unless you mean indoctrinated with fabulousness.